We're going to talk about Safari for your iPhone. Okay, and that's a little bit different than Safari for a Mac, but there are many similarities. And so learning how to use Safari on your iPhone might help you learn how to use it on your Mac, but it is designed for working with iPhones, the Safari application that comes with iPhones. It's built in, it doesn't cost anything. It does work with iCloud. We'll talk a little bit about that. Mostly we're going to be looking at the different buttons and settings that you can use while you're using Safari on your phone to browse web pages that might help you find a few things that are going to be a little more advantageous. And we'll take a look at some things you can do on Safari that might help you with using it on websites and make your web browsing experience a little bit better. I'm just curious, anybody has anything they're hoping we will cover about Safari today? If they had any questions, they were saying, gee, I wonder if Bob's going to cover this or anything like that. Anybody have anything? Yeah, Kathleen.
In the last 3 weeks, I've been using Safari and I'm still not sure what it is or how, why I'm using it other than it comes with the Apple stuff.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about what Safari does and help you understand why you want to use it. Okay.
And
Anybody else?
How is it different from Google Chrome? That's the other part of the question.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that. That's a good question. All right. Sure. Anybody else have any questions they're hoping we'll cover today? All right, well, as we go through, you may discover things that you didn't know Safari could do, which is part of why we do this class. And you may know some things that you can already do in Safari. So stick with us while we go through some of the basics and take you through some of the other things that Safari can do, okay? So let me share my screen again. Okay, so Safari, to answer Kathleen's question, why do you care about it? It is an application called a web browser. And web browsers display web pages when you're using them on your device, whether it's a smartphone or a computer or a laptop or a desktop or a portable. The purpose of a web browser is to display web pages for you. So if you want to browse the web and view web pages, you would use a web browser on your device, whether it's a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop. And websites display a little bit differently when you look at them in a full-size view, which is what you normally would do when you're looking at them on a desktop or other larger computer screen. And they look a little bit different when you view them on a smartphone. And that's something that you don't have to worry about. It's done automatically by the web page. So on a smartphone, your web page is taller than it is wide. Whereas on a desktop, it is wider than it is tall. And so for the web page to appear, there's a little switch on websites that tells them, oh, I am going to be sending this web page to a smartphone, or I'm going to be sending this web page to a desktop. And it sends a slightly different version of the website depending on what type of device you use to go to that website. You can see it with Get Setup Site. If you look at Get Setup Site on a desktop, it looks a little bit different. I'll actually go to it right now to show you. And it has a wide view. There's navigation on the left. There's a search box here. And there's information that you can view by scrolling down, and it's laid out a little bit differently, okay? So when you view it on a smartphone, it has a narrower view, doesn't it? If you've ever used it on your iPhone, you may have noticed that. And that's done automatically by the website, not by anything that you need to do, okay? And it's because when you have a desktop, you generally have a bigger screen. The screens on smartphones are small, and again, they're vertical in orientation, okay? So it needs to display the web page a little bit differently. Now, Safari is a web browser that comes built in with iPhones, but all web browsers, which includes Chrome is a web browser made by Google. Okay, so it's an application made by Google that's a web browser. Safari is a web browser made by Apple. Edge is a web browser made by Microsoft, and there's some others out there. But they all do a couple of common things. One of the things they do is they have a text field where you can enter in a search term to go searching for things on the web, or you can enter in a web address that ends with, say, a .com or a .edu or .org or a .io, and then it will go and find that address for you. So you're, depending on how you type something in, it will send, a message out to the internet to either search for something and find a set of websites you might be interested in, or it'll go to a particular address. And so when you type in something with a something after at the end of the word, your web browser says, oh, you want to actually find that specific website, and I'm going to go find it for you. Any questions about that? Now, Safari has a few settings, not too many, but Safari has settings that let you make changes to how it works. Normally, Safari, even though it's made by Apple, it uses Google for searching. Apple does not have a search service that searches the internet, and they actually take money from Google to make sure that Google is the search service you use when you do a search in the Safari browser. You can switch it in settings. I'll show you where some of those settings are in Safari that you make changes to. And Safari also works with iCloud. It connects to iCloud, and it's usually automatically connected. And what the connection does is it synchronizes things like your bookmarks and your reading list and passwords. And there's another tool in there called Handoff that is made specifically to work with Apple products. Now, Safari is only available on Apple products. You cannot download and install Safari on a Windows computer or any other type of device. Safari only comes with Apple products. And so Apple supports Safari through their technical support, but they also make sure that it works really, really well with Safari when people use other devices as well. This little handoff feature is there because when you're working with something in Safari on your phone and you are, say, in your living room, and you come and sit down at your desk where you have your MacBook, and you open up your MacBook, there'll be a little icon in your dock that will tell you that you're using Safari on your phone. And you can just click on that and it'll open up the last web page you were looking at automatically, so that you can very quickly switch off between using your phone and your Mac. So they do make some resources that make it work really, really well between iPhones and Macs that are helpful. So any questions before we take a look at Safari and kind of explore it through my iPhone here? Time to fill up my water soon after class. Okay.
I have a question, Bob. A, a browser is the same thing as a search engine, is that right?
Actually, that's a good question, but they're actually different. Okay, a browser is an application that opens up web pages and displays web pages on your device. A search engine is a website that runs searches for you on the internet. So let's say you were going to Amazon, you go to a shopping site. But if you use Google for search, you are doing a search on Google, even though you might be looking at Google through Safari.
Okay.
So Safari is the browser that will display the Google website and the Google results. But Google is the search engine that's doing it. Now, Google makes a lot of things. I mean, so does Apple, but Google makes, does a search engine. They also make the Chrome web browser. They make the Android operating system, but Google runs a search website.
Okay, thank you.
So when it's kind of like when you go to the library and you're looking for a book to read, there's the act of reading a book, but then there's the act of going and finding the book you want to find. Okay, so finding the book is searching, but once you get the book in your hand, you can read it. There are actually two different actions that you're taking. So browsing is about looking at web pages. Searching is about using a search engine that goes out and finds things for you on the internet.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Common question. We do a class on all about web browsers that kind of helps people understand the different web browsers and what's common and how they work together. All web browsers will display web pages pretty much equally. It's just a matter of some of the little buttons and additional features they have. And we periodically do a class on using Chrome on iPhones as well. But if you have an Apple Mac or an Apple iPad and a iPhone, Safari does have some conveniences that might be worth making sure you know how to use. Okay, so I'm going to share my iPhone screen. And that's where we're spending most of the time today in class, okay? Let me move a few things around for myself so I can make it easier to do a few things. Okay, so Safari is a built-in application that comes installed on your iPhone automatically. It's there when you open up your iPhone. And this is the application icon for Safari. It's usually in this bottom row of applications, but it could have gotten moved around over time. That's usually where Apple keeps it because browsing the web is one of the most common activities people do with their mobile devices. And so they put it conveniently there. Okay, when you want to open up an application on your phone, you just tap the application and it opens up Safari. So let me check something here real quick. I've got to make sure that I've got something set up correctly to make sure. Okay, there we go. And one other thing, okay. I wanted to make sure I had it set up so that I can show you what it's like when you first might look at it, or as close to that as I can get, okay? And when I tap on Safari, you will typically see a list of information. That list of information might include something called favorites. You'll see something called a privacy report. And you may or may not see something in what's called a reading list, okay? If you don't have a reading list, you won't see anything there. Now, at the bottom of Safari, and this is with the latest version of Apple, you'll see a set of controls here. There is a box here where you can enter a search term or a website address. That's that dual purpose text field. There's no key.
I don't have any of this on my Safari. I just have like squares, and one of them says iCloud and the second says designing, and it has a little funny dial in the center.
Okay, so you may have something open. What happens when you use a web browser is that it opens up the last thing you were doing. I opened up Google here just so that I could show you. And when I go out of Safari and I go back into Safari, it brings up the last thing I was looking at when I was using Safari. It doesn't open up a fresh version of Safari for me. It shows me the last thing I was doing.
It says 29 tabs, and I have no idea what 29 tabs are or how they got there.
Well, we're going to talk about tabs. So
Okay.
you
All
have
right.
something that is different because you have been using Safari. Okay. No two versions of Safari will look exactly the same unless they were always on brand new phones that nobody has touched. So I'm going to show you how to navigate around a little bit that will help you. Now, I opened up a page called Google. It says at the bottom here, I see an address called google.com. This area, this text area here will tell me whether I am looking at a web page and what the address is of that web page. That's what that address is. I can tap in that text field with my finger and I can change what is in there. If I tap on the text field, my keyboard pops up automatically. And that's how keyboards generally pop up on iPhones. So if you're still learning your way around an iPhone, I'd suggest some of the iPhone tips and tricks classes we have. But I can delete this address by clicking on the X button. And if I tap on the X button, it blanks out the search field. Now I can type in a website. I'm going to type in getsetup.io. Now, it usually will remember if I've gone to that website before, and it might suggest it in this top list, but I can also tap on a button here that says go, and it will go to that website. It's going to that website. I didn't type it in right. Let me type it in correctly. Okay. I was talking and typing at the same time. And that's actually pretty hard to do, believe it or not. Okay, so now I'm at getsetup.io. At the bottom, there's the address. Okay, now, if I take my finger and I put it around here and I swipe up with my finger, those tools disappeared. They're not here anymore, are they? What happened to them? Well, they disappeared automatically to make room for information on the website. So if I take my finger and I swipe down on the screen, it brings those controls back up again. So swiping up will make the full website, give the website a little more room on the page. Swiping down will typically get your controls back for you again if you aren't sure where they are. So it's up to you. They disappear. It's only because you are looking at a web page. You scrolled up. If you scroll down, you'll get those pieces of information to appear again. And that's a common gesture on iPhones because it's got a small screen. They want to maximize what you can see on the screen. Okay, so I've got get set up here. I can tap on this text field again. And I can tap on an X and I can enter another website. Let me go to, say, Microsoft. Okay. And it entered it, automatically completed it for me because I've used it before. I'm going to tap go. Now it's taken me to Microsoft's website, Microsoft.com. So I have the ability to use that text field to go enter web addresses and change what website I'm looking at. If you type in that text field a word or a phrase, what was I looking for today? Okay, I'm going to tap in that text field. I'm going to delete Microsoft by tapping the X, and I'm going to type in the word furniture. And I get some suggestions here. And if I just have the word furniture typed in and I click on go, I'm going to get a different set of results on my page. I'm going to get a Google search results. I'm going to allow it, my location. And what I am now looking at is a Google search result for the word furniture.
Bob Cohen, how did you get out of the X?
When you type in, when you tap in this field where you have the word at the bottom, whatever it is your address is, you
Okay.
tap on that and you tap on the X in that to the right of
Oh,
it,
okay.
you can
Okay,
type in something brand new.
Okay, thanks. I still,
You'll see that X. One thing about Apple is that they're pretty consistent about using things like X means delete, or clear the field, right? So if you want to clear something that you're typing anywhere, X will usually do it for you. They're pretty consistent in terms of things like that.
okay,
Okay.
and how did you get your favorites in there? I mean,
Well,
what things you
favorites,
chose?
your favorites are bookmarks that you have saved. Mine are different from yours. Apple usually includes the Apple favorite as the only favorite. Okay, and any other favorite that I have here is a favorite that I have saved when I've saved the bookmark. We're going to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So if I don't want to change anything, I can hit the button called cancel up at the top right. That will take me back to the screen that I was looking at. This is a search results page from Google that I am looking at. So Google has displayed a whole bunch of search results for furniture that it thinks I might be interested in. That's what I'm looking at. If I swipe down, I can see I'm looking at, I did a search. That's the search box for Google. Okay. So that's one way that's important to understand that text field can work both ways. If you enter in an address, like if I entered in, I tap on it again, and I tap the X and I enter an address called furniture.com, it's going to go to a specific website called furniture.com. I'm at furniture.com. I'm no longer looking at Google search. So part of it is understanding what you're looking at when you're actually looking at something on the web. And this little text, this little box down here will help you understand what it is you're looking at. Now, I'm going to show you something called tabs. This little icon here is for tabs. This icon is for bookmarks. This icon lets you share the web page with other ways of other things. This icon adjusts the text size. So we're going to take a look at that in each one of those. There's a back arrow and a right arrow. Okay. So let's take a look at tabs first. Okay. I'm going to hit the tab button. And I have one tab open. It shows me I am looking at furniture.com. I have a done button. If I'm done and I don't want to do anything else, I can just tap done and it takes me back to the standard view. If I tap the tab button again and I tap the plus button, I can open up a new tab. On your desktop, you have tabs in your web browser. It gives you a way to keep web pages open, but you can actually see the tabs. They actually look like file folders. So if you have like a file folder like this, you know, and you've got a tab on it, you actually see multiple tabs on your desktop web browser. There's not enough room for us to display tabs on a smartphone. So it uses a tab button. So I have one tab I'm going to tap the plus button. I get a whole new way to search or enter a website. Let's say I'm planning a trip and I want to check airline fares. I can type in American Airlines. Okay. Here it is, aa.com comes up and it takes me to their website. Well, what happened to furniture.com? Well, it didn't disappear. It's still there because I used the plus button when I use the tab. If I tap this tab button again, let's cross our fingers. I should have two tabs. Yes, I do. I have two tabs. I have furniture.com and I have American Airlines. I want to check United Airlines. So I'm going to tap the plus button and I'm going to go to United. And it helps me with search. So I'm going to tap United. So now I have United's website open, but what happened to American and Furniture? I tap the tab button and I can choose which one I want to. So I can go to American, I can tap the tab button, I can go to United. I can go to tap the tab button, I can go back to Furniture. So it is a fast way to switch between websites by keeping tabs open. You don't have to close them if you don't want to, but you can if you choose to. So I'm going to tap the tab button again. I'm going to tap the plus. I'm just going to type in Wikipedia. Okay. And so now I've got 4 tabs. I tap the tab button to see them. Here's Furniture, American Airlines, United, and Wikipedia. If I don't want the Wikipedia tab open anymore, I can just tap on this little X symbol and that will remove it from my tabs. Because maybe I want to check another airline. I just want to, have different sites open. So this is a way to open up websites so that you can easily switch between them if you want to. That's what tabs are used for. Okay, any questions about tabs? Try using them. Anytime you typically click on a link to open a website, you'll often open up a website in a new tab. And so you might end up with a whole bunch of tabs open. And if you tap and hold on the tab button, you get a whole set of options. You can close your tabs, you can move tabs around and organize in the groups, or you can start a new tab. So tapping and holding, and just if you want to delete them all at once, you can do that. Or you can tap the tab button and click on the X's for the ones you don't want open anymore. Doesn't use up any resources on your computer, doesn't use up any memory. You can have as many tabs open as you want. There's no limit on it. But again, it's a quick way. If I wanted to go between American and United to check airfares, I could do that very quickly just by using tabs and switching between the websites. Now, I'm going to open up another tab for Get Set Up. And there's a 4th tab. Okay, and Get Set Up has an area on their website called Stories. Let's check that out. Okay, it has stories about articles and other things that people have been doing. So we can, look at different things. Let's take a look at this April article here. I tapped on it. Now, you may not have noticed it, but very quickly, when you look at this text field, I'm going to tap on this button here, which is called a refresh button. It refreshes the web page. if you're looking for updated information, if you tap that refresh button, it updates the web page and brings up any new information. So for shopping or for checking prices or for any news, anything that changes frequently, tapping that refresh button just brings up the latest information on a web page. What also happens is that when you are looking at some types of web pages, they have a view called Reader View. And this is pretty much unique to Apple Safari, but it on iPhones. But I'm going to tap this refresh button again and look in this text. It's going to change. You'll see it. It says Reader Available, and it disappears. What does Reader Available mean? Reader Available means that there is a reader view of this web page that is available. And how do you get to Reader View? Well, these two letters give you the ability to change the size of your text on a web page, but also to access Reader View. It's a button. So if you tap on the two A's, it brings up a list of information. It says Show Reader, and it also shows a little a and a big A. So if you want to make the text bigger, you can tap the A and it makes it bigger, or you can tap the little a and make it smaller. But what's also handy about this double A is that there is something called Reader View. Okay, you can also translate websites and do other things, but I'm going to tap on Show Reader. The view of the web page has changed. It's much more like reading a book than it is looking at a web page. It's taken out some pictures and images. It's made the text bigger. It's made it easier to read if I want to read it. And it's a very convenient way to read web pages if that's what you like to do. The double A is in black now because I'm in Reader View. If I tap it again and I hide Reader, I will go back to the normal view of the web page. It's a convenient way to show a web page that makes it more readable. Now, once you've got the black reverse text here and you tap on it, you can actually change the font and the color of your web page if you want to. So if you prefer reading it on something a little more, tan, or you prefer a dark view or a high contrast view, you can change it. You can change the font that the text is in if you want to, if you're interested, and look at different ways. When you're done with that view, you can tap on Hide Reader. If you leave the web page and come back to it again, it'll automatically be in the standard web page view. So that not only do these two little A's adjust the size of your text, on web pages that do have a reader view available, not all of them do, but usually ones with a lot of text that are more like articles have that in them. It also takes ads out of the web page and simplifies any web page. So if you're trying to read an article, I've read articles on websites sometimes, and all they have is an ad, like one paragraph and an ad, one paragraph and an ad. And using Reader View helps make it much easier to read web pages that are set up like that. So that's another button on there. Okay. So we've looked at tabs. We've looked at our search and address bar. We've looked at the double A's, and we've looked at the refresh button. These other two have a little more going for them. This button here, the open book, that's where you find your bookmarks and something called the reading list. This is where you share web pages. So this is a web page that I have here. It's the article on that is April is Stress Awareness Month. If I want to email myself a link for that or email it to somebody else or send it as a message or something, I would tap the share button. This is the share button on iPhones. It looks the same no matter where you use it. If I tap the share button, it brings back a bunch of options. I can send this web page as a message just by tapping the messages. It shows people that I frequently have sent messages to up on top. Yours will be different than mine. But if I tap on messages, it's automatically included the link to the web page in the body of the message. I just have to tell it who I want to send it to. So you don't have to copy and paste it. I'm going to cancel this. Okay, clear up some of my drawings. If I want to send this as a mail message, I would tap the share button and then I would tap mail. And it's going to have the link to the web page and the title. And all I have to do is tell it who I want to send it to. I'm going to cancel that. If I wanted to add this web page to a note, I can tap on the share button and I can tap on the notes application and it will create a new note for me. I can add some text to the note, maybe some things to help me find it. April stress article. And I can save this as a note. And now that web page is saved in my notes application. Share is more just about sending an email to somebody. Share is about sharing your web page to a variety of places. There are some other options on share that require you to swipe up when you tap the share button. So if I swipe up, there's a lot of other stuff here. I can add this web page as a bookmark. I can add it to my favorites. I can add it to my home screen. I can add it to my reading list. And there's a lot of other stuff that you can do with it. So what happens if you add it to your favorites? I'm going to tap that. And it says add to favorites. I'm going to tap done. Okay, so where does that end up? Well, if I tap on the text area here, I now see a new web page bookmarked in my favorites. Favorites is meant to be the things you really go to a lot. That's and so you can put it there. If I wanted to delete it from favorites, I would tap and hold on it and I can delete it. But I've got it set up in my favorites. If I want to save this in something called my reading list, it will download the web page and save it on my phone so I can read it later. Now, for those of you that have iPads and Macs, there is an icon in Safari that called the sidebar icon, and it opens up your sidebar, and that's where you can find your reading list. And if you have iCloud turned on for Safari on your phone, which is the standard setting, and you have iCloud turned on for your Mac, anything you put in the reading list on your phone will also be in the reading list on your Mac. And you don't have to go back and forth between devices. So where do you find some things like that? Well, if I look at the bookmarks symbol, it shows my reading list because I have, this is the glasses for reading list. There is a history of websites you've looked at. So if you're saying, gee, I know I was looking at that website yesterday. Which one was it? You could look at history, or you could look at your bookmarks. And if you wanted to find things that were in your favorites or other places, but I can just tap on my reading list and I can find web pages that I've downloaded that I want to read at any time I want to. So it's an easy way to find things with your iPhone, to be able to find and go back to look at web pages that you might want to. And the thing about the reading list and the bookmarks, favorites, they're all synchronized between all of your Apple devices, so that you'll see the same favorites on your Mac as you see on your phone, as you see on your iPad. And that's what iCloud does for you, is it synchronizes those types of information. Now, one of the things we could do also is, if, let's say you go to a website frequently, like Get Set Up, okay? If you wanted to, we could open up a new tab, start a new tab for getsetup.io. And if I tap on the share button and I scroll up, one of the options is to add this website to my home screen. What that does is it saves that website link as a button on your home screen, just like it's an app. So if I tap that and I tap on add, okay, so it says an icon will be added to your home screen so you can quickly access this website. Let's tap add. And sure enough, on my home screen is now a Get Set Up button. I can just tap on Get Set Up and it opens up the Get Set Up website right away. I don't have to go to Safari. So it's a shortcut. Remember, the purpose of technology is to make life easier for you, not harder. And if there are things that you do frequently, sometimes technology gives you the ability to make it easier for you to do it over and over and over again, repeatedly. So if you're finding yourself going to a particular website on your phone a lot, add it to your home screen and it'll be available to you as an icon on your home screen. Just like any other app icon, you can move it around and reposition it if you want to. Or if you want to delete it, the way to delete an icon or move an icon from your home screen is to unlock them. So if you tap and hold on that icon, and I let go, usually they start jiggling, they are unlocked. So that means now I can move it around and reposition it however I want to onto different screens and different locations if I want to. And if I want to delete it, I can tap the minus button and it'll say I can delete that bookmark, and then tap done, and I'm done. So that share icon does a number of things. It's not just sending a link by a text message or a email or to your notes. It can also do a number of other things in there. So Safari's really got a lot of little tricks that you can make use on your iPhone. There are settings for Safari, and I don't want to confuse you too much with them, but there are some settings for Safari that are in the settings to make sure, if you ever want to know if your Safari was synchronizing with iCloud, you would start with iCloud and then tap on iCloud and look for Safari. And it's just a matter of, if it's turned on, it's green, and that means it is synchronizing with iCloud. That's one setting, making sure iCloud is working. The other settings for Safari change the way it works a little bit. So there's a settings for Safari, there's settings for all applications, but the settings for Safari give you the ability to do one major thing that some people like to do. Is if you want to change the search engine from Google to something else, you can change it to Yahoo or Bing or DuckDuckGo or Ecosia, so that when you type in a search term in Safari, it won't automatically use Google for the search. It'll use something else. And you can just check one off and it'll start using that. Ecosia is similar to DuckDuckGo. It doesn't do tracking. So if you want a more private. And then your other things that are here, if you don't like that tab bar at the bottom, if you prefer the old way, having it up on top, you can check this off and it'll move it to the top, okay? And Safari is automatically set up to block a lot of pop-ups for you, so you tend to get fewer pop-ups with Safari. Okay, any questions about things that you can do with Safari on your iPhone?
Where do you find more information about this if you want to search on the website?
I'm going to send you in the email follow-up, Kathleen, a link to Apple's support page for Safari on
Okay.
iPhone, because they have a lot of resources for Safari that are out there that explain much, even more than what we cover in just an hour here.
It'll be a direct connection because I have trouble when I go to there to find what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's a matter of finding the things that you want to make most use of and learning them. Now, I'm going to show you something on my phone. I think I can, on my desktop, I think I can set this up correctly. And if I can, everything will work pretty well. And what we're going to try and do, at least I'll be able to show you on my desktop here. Okay, so let's see if I can stop my screen sharing here and do something a little bit different that I wanted to do. Okay. Okay, so this is going to work okay, I think. So let me move one thing around here and choose a share my whole screen. Okay, so what I've done is I put my phone up on my screen. Okay, so you can see my phone. And I'm going to open up Safari and I've got it set up to look at this Get Setup page. If I go to my Mac and I put up my, bring my cursor down to the pop-up where it brings up the dock, there's Safari on my Mac, but there's another Safari icon to the far right. There's a little one right here that says Safari from iPhone. This is that handoff feature that exists on Apple products between Macs and iPhone. So if I'm looking at a page, web page on my phone, and I come up to my desk and I sit down in front of my desk and I open up my Mac and I say, gee, what was that web page I was looking at? I just have to swipe down on my dock and I can click on that button, Safari from iPhone, and it pulls up the web page that I was looking at on my phone automatically. I don't have to manually enter it. Macs will do that. Now on the desktop on Safari, there's this little icon next to the 3 colored dots. So if you're looking at a desktop ever on Safari, there's the 3 dots for controlling the window. And then there's a little icon here called a sidebar. If you click that sidebar icon, it shows you your tabs and also your bookmarks and also your reading list. And usually in the reading list, it shows things that are read and unread, and it shows you information that you might have saved on your phone in different places. Here's Get Setup, article. Here's another article that I saved on my reading list that is updated. And so you'll see them synchronized, eventually between them. And the nice thing about the reading list is that it's searchable. So if you're looking at something on your phone and you think you want to go back and read it later on your desktop in Safari, it's really easy to do just by clicking that sidebar link whenever you want to find your reading list, okay? So just a benefit of having something extra that you have with a Mac when you're using Safari between a Mac and an iPhone, okay? Now, some of you had some questions about different web browsers. Chrome is made by Google and it works really well with Google Apps. You can use it with Gmail, you can use it with Google Docs, Google Slides, other things like that. Safari is made by Apple. It works well with iPhone, Apple apps, Siri, iPads, and Macs. Okay, that's because Apple makes it. You can install Chrome on your phone if you want to. And Microsoft also makes a really good web browser called Edge. It works well with Windows, and you can download and install it from the App Store for your iPhone as well. So either one, any one of them will work really well. It just depends on which one you use the most and which one you'd rather get most familiar with. Okay, I saw we had a question here from Sushila. We don't have any classes on iPhone Wallet. As more people are starting to use iPhones and want to make use of them, we might do something like that, maybe in a tech topic, because Apple has Apple Pay and Google has Google Pay. I use Apple Wallet a lot. I went to a movie yesterday and I bought my movie ticket online before I went to the theater, and I added the ticket to my Apple Wallet. It's what you can use with boarding passes on airlines and other reservations and tickets and other things like that as well. It kind of depends on applications that you use, whether it'll work with that application or not, but a lot of them do. But okay, so we've looked at web browsers, mobile web browsers, using some of the Safari buttons and icons, some of the settings. Even if you just try out one thing that you haven't done before in Safari, and get more familiar with it, that will help you. If you're not used to using that tab button, start using it and seeing what tabs you